Okay, so welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about non-traditional hackamores, rope hackamores. And this is going to be kind of a two-part deal. It's going to be partially educational, talking about the different kinds of rope hackamores and how they're used and what they're used for. And this is going to be partially commercial because I quit chewing after about a 25-year habit or so, and I have to do something with my hands at night to keep me from going crazy. So I've been making up a bunch of these and selling them. But I wanted to talk about the different ones and how they work and what the point of them is. So first of all, why would you use a rope hackamore versus a traditional rawhide hackamore or leather hackamore for that matter? And there's a variety of reasons. For one, they're less expensive. That's just how it is. They're just less expensive. There's less expense in the material. There's less work for the person that makes them. So they're quite a bit more economical. For two, they can be really, really versatile in the sense that because they're less expensive, a guy is going to use them in a lot of different ways and tie the reins in a lot of different ways that you get some more uses out of them. And since they're less expensive, you can have more of them for the same price, and so you can have more tools. So we'll talk about, these are three I have made up right here, and I'll just start with this. These two purple ones are out of the same rope. This is from towards the end of the rope, towards the tail, so it's less used than this one is. I like to make these out of a used rope. I don't know anybody that makes them out of new ropes, but most guys use old team roping ropes, and team roping ropes, by the time team ropers quit using them, they've still got a lot of life in them and they're still really stiff. I don't really like them that way, so I make them out of used up ranch ropes. But then there's still different stiffnesses to them and different life and different body to them. So like I said, this one's made from the tail end of it, so it's quite a bit stiffer and less pliable than this one would be. And then this one here is cotton. Let me talk about the makeup of these. Basically, anybody in the world can make one of these. You can just take a piece of rope and tie a knot at the end of it. You tie an overhand knot and get the job done. The difference between one rope style hackamore and another rope style hackamore, there's two main differences. The main difference that I see in them is how this heel knot is tied between one that's a really good tool to use and one that's just a rope with a knot tied in the end of it. If this heel knot is tied, for instance, the way a traditional rawhide hackamore is tied, or similar to that with a fancy rawhide heel knot braided around there, which you'll see people do. You'll see people make these and put a fancy rawhide heel knot around there. And a lot of times, depending on how that's done underneath there, this rope will actually twist inside that knot and it won't stay straight. And I don't mean twist like a hackamore if you leave them tied too long with your McCarty on too long. Sometimes they'll twist a little bit like this. A rawhide one will, and these nylon ones will too. It just takes a lot longer. But I mean, it'll follow its own twist because a rope is twisted. So it'll follow its own twist and it'll turn in there. So I tie these a way I was shown a long time ago in such a way that they don't do that and they stay a lot more square. And then the other difference between one and another is how the reins are tied on there, and I'll get to that in just a second. But that's just a basic one right there. I want to talk about why you would want to use one of these. I don't particularly like to start colts in these. I know a lot of people that do like to start colts in something like this. It's got a small diameter, so it's got quite a little bit of bite, but it's still really forgiving. And a guy can get a lot of side-to-side flexion done with them, can really accomplish a lot with them, especially cutters. Cutters really, really like starting their colts in these little rope hackamores. I know some other guys that ride a lot, broker horses, show horses, NRCHA, bridle horses, and they'll ride their bridle horse in something like this. A lot of times, instead of riding it in a bridle, to keep them sharp and to keep them really operating real true and real clean. And then of course, one like this could also be used as a Bozalita if you're going through the two rein process. You could call it kind of a poor man's Bozalita. I've used something like this a bunch, even when I had really nice Hackamore or rawhide Bosolitas, because I was in like really, really rough country, or a lot of times when I was cowboying and you know, didn't want to use my real expensive kind of stuff. And these work equally well for putting a finish on a horse, and I really like them. The last thing I want to point out before I get to how the reins are tied is these little blood knots here. There's a million different names for these. I call them blood knots. Some people call them rattles, dove's heads. You could call them all kinds of stuff. But you see people, and probably people that watch my channel have heard me lament about this before. You see people that will take and they'll have a string that goes under the horse's throat latch to pull this hanger down away from their eyes. Well, the amount of blood knots that you put in there is what pulls that hanger down naturally. You know, and that's just an old Hackamore braider's trick, and it's different for each one depending on the diameter and the material and this and that, how many blood knots it takes. But you see how that hangs at an angle and it doesn't hang straight down. That's not going to get in your horse's eye because I've got more blood knots in there. If I recall, I figured out it takes 9 on this purple rope, and then for every kind of rope it's going to be a little different. So I want to talk about how these are tied here. So this, as you can see, I hope, this is split reins, and I'll talk about the material of this here in a minute. This is split reins. I've showed before how I tie these split reins on a Hackamore. My favorite Hackamore is a rawhide Hackamore. My favorite Hackamore for starting colts. I've got a set of split rope reins on it, and it's an old California made one, but I put rope split reins on there. But this is tied in such a way, and like I said, I've shown it before on some of my videos, but this is tied in such a way that you see the reins come out to the side here a little bit instead of straight out like they would in a traditional McCarty and Hackamore setup. And I've got one tied like that. I've got a couple tied like that, and I'll show you the difference. But since these come out to the side, this is the back of it towards the horse's chest. Since these come out more to the side, what you end up getting a lot more rotation on the noseband, and you get more horizontal. I always have to check because I didn't spend much time in school. You get more horizontal flexion on your horse rather than when they're tied straight back. When they're tied straight back, it utilizes the, what do you call a teeter-totter? It's got
leverage?
Yeah, utilizes the leverage if you've got your reins tied straight back like your traditional Hackamore with a McCarty setup. It utilizes the leverage in a Hackamore. Tied like this, it takes a lot of the leverage away, and so I tie it like this for a young horse, for something that I'm riding that's still learning, and so I don't use as much leverage, but I use a lot more side to side. It makes it work a bit more like a side pull, but then a side pull has absolutely no leverage and is 100% horizontal, and you don't get any vertical out of it at all. And I've just never really got along with side pulls very good. I get along a lot better with something like this. So I like to use something like this time of year, which this is late summer for me. And where I'm out in South Texas, late summer, the horse's hair is really, really thin. Their skin's really thin. It's really, really hot. And so I find something like this is just sort of a break for those young horses. And I can just get a lot done and just have it be a lot easier deal for them than a snaffle bit, especially since I'm putting real short rides on them this time of year. It's 110 degrees and 80% humidity. I'm not riding them for very long, so I feel like I can get a lot done with something like this. Other places in the world, like when I lived in Nevada, I would use something like this in the winter because I don't like to put metal in their mouth when it's freezing or below freezing, just out of politeness. So I would use something like this. There's a lot of different times and a lot of different places you would use something like this. So next I'm going to show, this is one I made a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, several years ago. And you can see I've got this is also split reins, but I've got it tied in such a way that the reins come straight out the back, just like it would in a traditional Hackamore. I made this little rope Hackamore specifically for a specific horse that was really he was really stiff in the neck and really tough in the face. And he went on to have a big career. He sold for over $100,000 as a rope horse. He made a really nice horse. But in his 4-year-old year, he was a little tough to get along with. And so I made it like this and have it rigged up so it pulls straight back, so it utilizes all the leverage. And this particular one is made out of an almost new rope. It's a very stiff rope. And then I sprayed something on here on this to make it even stiffer yet. And the idea with this was I was trying to use that stiffness and that leverage to darn sure ouch that horse a little bit so he'd pay a little better attention to me. And so that's, again, I've got it tied straight back like that. But that's really not how I like to do these. I like them where they're tied off to the side and they get a lot more action. But can be done either way. While I'm at it, I talked about the versatility of these. These are also ones I made a long time ago. This is out of, I don't even know what kind of rope this is, but a big old stiff piece of rope. And I'm not even sure where I came up with this idea or what horse it was for or anything else, but sometime in my life I decided this needed nerve knots. So this is actually baling wire wrapped around here, and then I've taped over it so it doesn't poke them, and I was trying to get some more nerve out of there. But this rope is as heavy as it is, it doesn't have a lot of life to it, and so I was trying some stuff there. Again, that's just to show the versatility of these kind of Hackamores and the different things you can do. And then this last one, this is one I didn't tie, but you see how it's twisted like that? Okay, it's got a bad twist in it. That's because this heel knot is tied more like a traditional rawhide Hackamore heel knot and not the way I tie them. I don't remember who made this or where it got it in a trade or whatever, and I don't even know why it's still around. I haven't thrown it in the burn pile, maybe just to show people. But this one twists where these ones won't. So in the middle here, I've got a cotton Hackamore. This is made out of, I don't know, 5/8 inch cotton rope, and that's just a twisted cotton rope. The idea behind, there's several different reasons for doing something like this. I got the idea originally from Benny Catrone, and he always had a couple of these around. He was known as Mr. Hackamore for a long time until he died. And he kept them around if he was using a rawhide Hackamore or one of these nylon rope Hackamores. Occasionally, if you really get to riding one a lot, training on them a lot, you'll knock some DNA off on their jaw. And when you get a horse's jaw sore like that in a Hackamore, they don't get soft and light into it, they actually lean into it. Horses are an end pressure animal and they'll push into that pain. And so they actually get stiffer. Where they were stiff, they lost the DNA because you were pulling on them because they were stiff. And then since you knock the DNA off, it makes them even stiffer yet. And so you'll see people put black tape on their Hackamores. I've done it myself. A variety of things, but nothing actually that I've ever seen works better than one of these cotton ones. They're just light and got a nice feel to them. They've still got enough, since they're heavier, they've got enough body to them that horse still gets a lot of signal, but it works good on one that's got its jaw a little sore. I leave these, when I make them, I leave these, my terminating knots here, I leave them taped until I start using them. And as soon as I start using them, I cut that tape off and put a little twist in there with my fingers, and then it just fluffs up like that, and it makes it to where it won't ever unravel and stays like that forever and ever. But until I start using it, I leave them taped up. This is one that I use a lot. This time of year, like I said, they're real thin skinned or thin haired. So I end up kind of rubbing a little hair off. Sometimes I'll use something like this. Another time I'll use one of these cotton ones, somewhat like a hair Hackamore, a horsehair or a cowtail Hackamore. These cotton ones you can take and dip them in water and they get stiff, and then it totally changes the feel of them. They don't get as stiff as a hair Hackamore will, but they'll get a lot more body and a lot stiffer, and then they start to as you ride the horse and as they warm up and dry off, then they start to get way pliable again. And so you can start out with kind of a stiff horse and kind of a stiff hackamore, and as that horse starts to soften up throughout the course of the day, this hackamore also softens up, and so they kind of meet each other halfway. And so I like using this. It's a pretty good tool. It's another one I built. And oh, this one here, this one's not finished. I haven't burnt the ends on it yet, but this is going to operate more like a side pull when it's all said and done. But when I get the reins tied on it, it'll hold a shape kind of like this, and I'll tie the reins, split reins on there in a similar fashion so it'll pull to the side. It's just another use of this. It's just something where if you're really just loping a horse or giving a horse a day off, and maybe just spend a lot of time flexing it, or even putting it on a real soft cow and flexing it around, something like this works very good. And like I said, it's not finished, but you get the idea. The last thing I wanted to talk about was these reins altogether. You can use anything as you see with these. I've got some made out of grass reins that I braided. I've got some made out of, that's a mohair McCarty on that one. I've got some that are like heavy nylon, braided nylon that you would use for like a lead rope or something. But what I've found works the best is this stuff. And this isn't yacht rope. This is called arborist rope. And I had to cough before I said that, so I said it right. I know what arborist means, but I'm not an Okie, I'm an Oregonian. But I'm kind of a hayseed, so I don't ever say it right. But this arborist rope, to me, has got a way better feel to it than yacht rope. It's got more body to it. I just like the way it feels better. It can be waxed like a cotton rope can, or like grass ropes can, and then it's got even more body and more feel to it. To me, these feel better in different weather than yacht rope, when they're wet or when they're cold. This arborist rope just feels a lot better to me. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think it's worth it, and it wears better and longer too. So these are some different Hackamores. I've also I've got a McCarty, a hair McCarty, tail hair McCarty, that I'm going to build and make into some Hackamores here. No, the next chance I get a chance to sit down, and they'll be more like this, but they'll be made out of horsehair. And I've talked before about the reasoning a guy would do that. That's more of a training tool for a stiff horse. When I get a few of them made, I'll explain what the idea for them is. But these are just a few I've got. That's how they work. That's why they work. That's some of the differences in them, the different ways they're tied, the different ways you tie your reins. If you have any questions, everybody feel free to comment on YouTube about questions, or email me. It's davistraining83@gmail.com. Email me about any questions. And like I said, I quit chewing, so I'm sitting around at night building these, so if you need one, hit me up.
I want to thank the subscribers of our Patreon channel. The patrons, that's Patron where I'm from, give us the opportunity to bring these videos to you all. Without them, this channel wouldn't be possible. Join us over on Patreon for more in-depth lessons and step-by-step instruction on everything from gear to theory, riding everything from colts to bridle horses, the circus pole, and husbandry. We'd love to see you all over there.